Since reading Harry Potter as a child and being really into Twilight 15 years ago, I haven't been much of a fantasy reader, but in the last year and a half, I have found quite a few fantasy books that have become some of my favorites. For example, the Shadow Me series by Tyree Mafi. I only have 3 of their physical books, but I've read all of them, and also the Powerless series by Lauren Robert, of which I've given both book 1 and 2 5 stars. This video started as a way for me to read some of the books in my physical TBR, but it ended up with me reading 3 new books I didn't own instead. The first book I read was The Veiled Kingdom by Holly Renee. She is the only author in this video that I've read from before. I've read her Good Girl series. That is a contemporary romance series. I think it's called the Good Girl series. About they are interconnected standalones about people working in a tattoo shop. I found the first chapter of this book to be very similar to the beginning of Powerless by Lauren Robert. I felt like the pacing of this book was a little too quick and there weren't enough details about the motivations of the characters. There wasn't enough world building either. It felt just very rushed to me, so I didn't feel invested at all in the end when everything went down. I ended up giving this book 2.25 stars, so a 2-star on Goodreads, and I'm not going to be continuing the series, I don't think, because what I've heard from people who liked the first book is that they didn't like the second one. I usually don't like DNFing a series, but I just feel like there are a lot of other good options, some which are on my shelves that I for some reason didn't read for this video. So I'm not planning to continue the series, but we'll see. I feel like the end of the book kind of set up a situation similar to the end of Powerless, where it sets up the second book in a similar way. I don't know how to explain it without spoiling either of the books, but I just felt like the setup was very similar, and I feel like the second book is gonna start out very similar to Reckless. This wasn't my favorite. I think Holly Renee can definitely write, but it also seems pretty obvious to me that she used to write contemporary romance. I think I would be able to sense that even if I didn't know that. That said, I know she has another fantasy series that's quite popular. I might give that one a try. According to Goodreads, this book was 365 pages. It felt more like 250, but at the same time I was also bored with it. So that being said, I thought the spicy scenes between the main characters were really great and well written, but that is definitely not enough for me to be invested in the relationship, because I thought the romance was lacking. The second book I read was Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. I saw this absolutely everywhere on Goodreads and social media in general. And when I started this video and I picked out the books for this video, I did not know that all 3 of them were going to be nominated in the romantasy category for the Goodreads Choice Awards. So that is a complete coincidence, but works out because the next video I'll be doing is me reading nominees for the Goodreads Choice Awards in different categories, not romantasy this time. But now, after reading this, I know what my vote is going to be, and it is going to be for Phantasma. The vibes and the gothic atmosphere in this book was amazing. This is a much darker fantasy romantasy read. It is described as a dark fantasy romance on the cover. I found the plot very interesting. I found the deadly games and the haunted house and all that to be fun and exciting. I found the romance to be compelling and cute, and I liked the characters. I liked the entire story, and I will be definitely continuing the series because I gave this book 5 stars. I was fully invested the entire way through. The ending was super gripping, and all in all, just a very satisfying and fun reading experience. I was definitely pleasantly surprised by this book. So yeah, this was definitely right up my alley. Nothing that I've ever read before, really, and I'll definitely be looking into reading more gothic fantasy. The third and last book I read was Quicksilver by Kelly Hart. This is another book that I saw absolutely everywhere. I've heard mixed things about it. I've heard people saying it's the perfect fantasy book for them, and I've heard people saying it's too long. I think I agree sort of with both because for the first 75% of this book, I was thoroughly hooked. I was very invested in the main character, the journey that she goes on, the stuff that she learns about herself. I was invested in the romance, and actually, this book is probably the first instance for me of a romance situation where the ex or the person she had previously been with or whatever, when they show up in the book, that I actually liked that character because I loved Carrion. I thought he was hilarious, and I hope that we get like his story or his POV in the coming books. I think so. Totally the first time ever that an ex has been on the journey, and I've really enjoyed the ex as a character. Though I will say towards the ending of the book, it did feel a little long to me. I did lose my interest just a little bit, but at the same time, I don't really know what I would have liked to be cut out of the book because I enjoyed the entire thing. I just think that for me it was a bit long. I listened to the audiobook of this, and it is duet narrated, and it was incredible. So yeah, this was a 4-star read for me. So yeah, all in all, a great experience. Will I be reading more fantasy in the future? Absolutely. I will have to get started on the ones on my physical TBR, obviously. And also I'd like to branch out both towards reading more gothic fantasy and also reading some fantasy that is not romantasy, though that's a little bit more scary to me, and I feel like I have a hard time gauging what kind of fantasy I would be into. I enjoy sci-fi a lot, perhaps something a little sci-fi, we'll see. So yeah, I ended up with a 2-star, a 5-star, and a 4-star. So all in all, I'd say this was a success.